Hey everybody and welcome. My name is Coach Pav and today I'm going to be discussing why cyclists shouldn't donate blood. So I want to start this with a little disclaimer that says I'm suggesting you shouldn't, not don't. Of course, I am aware that as a bunch, as a community, we tend to be very giving and empathetic and thoughtful human beings. So if you do feel compelled to donate blood, or any part of you, please do so. What I want to talk today, though, is that maybe actually there is a better timing and definitely a better way of going about this. So I'm going to start with just some rifling off some facts here. And a study by the University of Washington's Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation found that in 2017, the worldwide need for blood was a little over 300, little under 305 million units, but the supply was only a little over 270 million units. So falling short of over 30 million units, actually. And a different study from the World Health Organization said that 3 in 4 people worldwide are physically active and found, and around 1 in 5 consider themselves an athlete and train for a specific sport or event. So when you actually think about those two studies, it's no wonder why we see so many cyclists risking their performance by donating blood. And actually, if we did stop, then there'd probably be an even bigger gap to bridge. So one of the things we're going to talk through today is the effects of blood donations on cycling performance, and the reasons why you should keep hold of your blood. And then balancing compassion for others with passion for your cycling performance, which is, like I said, timing is everything. When timing doesn't work, what can you do? And then what you can do in terms of giving more later, and my top tips for not losing your cycling performance when donating blood. So again, just going to go through the effects of blood donations on cycling performance. So a study published in the Sports Medicine Open in 2016 found that maximal but not submaximal endurance capacity was altered after blood donation. Maximum power output, VO2 peak or VO2 max, and hemoglobin mass were decreased by up to 4%. Were decreased up to 4 weeks after a single blood donation in moderately trained people, which we would suggest that you probably are, moderately to highly trained. Beneficial training adaptations seem somewhat lowered by repeated whole blood donations. Okay, so what we're suggesting there is actually the majority of the damage is done and repaired in around 48 hours, although the lasting effects are what you need to be careful about. So if you are training quite seriously and intensely and working hard for improvement, it seems counterproductive that you would give those hard-fought gains away. So ultimately, this does come down to two factors, the balance of two factors, and that is how compassionate you are about others and how passionately you feel about your cycling performance. So again, if you are listening on your favorite podcast streaming platform or watching on YouTube, you can go to my website, coachpav.com, and then /blog, or you can just find it at the top panel, and you can find some of the lists that I've got. There's 2 main ones in this blog, and there's 5 reasons why cyclists should keep hold of your blood. So here they are. Maximal endurance capacity is altered post-donation until rectified by training. So I'm just going to explain that one. So basically what we're talking about there is you will not get back what you lose, you won't ever get back unless you train again. So when you put that into perspective, you think that if you've spent 4 weeks training, your maximal endurance capacity, and then you give blood and you go back to those 4 weeks, you need to spend another 4 weeks to build that back up. So in terms of where you are, you lose 4 weeks and then you have to spend 4 weeks to get back up. So ultimately, that's quite a chunk. And I'm also throwing 4 weeks out there. It's going to really depend on you. So you could potentially see a lot longer than 4 weeks to build that back up. So maximal power output decreased up to 4 weeks. VO2 max also decreased up to 4 weeks. Hemoglobin decreased up to 4 weeks. And positive training adaptations also lowered. Again, so the 4 weeks is a ballpark figure based on the research from in the Sports Medicine Open 2016. So it's It's one of those things where if a client says to me that they're giving blood, usually I have to sit down and we have a very big conversation around whether or not that's actually something that they want to do. And again, like pretty much everything I talk about comes down to commitment. And if you are somebody who is doing something huge, like race across America, trying to break a world record, if you're definitely like trying to become a pro or anything like that, you don't need to be doing this. Like if you do this, like you're probably missing your shot at actually a success in your goals, or at least delaying it by a significant period of time. But if you're just, and I say just, it's not like it's just, I know these are big things, but if you're doing a Gran Fondo sportive or you're doing something like that, which you should achieve, and again, I'm not suggesting with ease, it's always going to be hard. You might just be going faster. But if it shouldn't be impossible for you to achieve, then yes, then there's possibly a good reason why this wouldn't matter too much. It's one of those things, right? When you get sick, I mean, I'm sure we've all trained and then got sick and then gone back to a point where you've lost 4 or more weeks of training, how demoralizing that is. And this is kind of what you're doing, except for you have control over this. Again, I'm not suggesting don't give blood. I'm suggesting there is ways in which you should do it. So as I said, as I've said a few times now, timing is everything. So given that the biggest losses tend to be around high intensity, it would be smart to avoid donating blood during the times where you're working on power. And you might need it, especially if you've got intense training coming as well. This is a little bit problematic if you are the typical amateur cyclist who has less than 8 hours a week to train, because you're probably doing constantly power-based training in terms of, I may have said that wrong, intensity is probably moderate. You're probably not doing a lot of low intensity if you've only got 5 to 8 hours or less, 8 hours or less training a week, because you're probably not going to get that adaptation that you want. Again, that's a generic kind of look at that. There'll be some people that do very well with, polarizing their training or just sticking at a low intensity, even if you do have limited time. But let's just say that you are doing a lot of power training, intensity training, moderate to high intensity. The timing you have got for donating blood is actually very small. And I would suggest that that's probably the point right after you finish your A event and are perhaps maintaining or having fun before you start, maybe take a week or 2 off and then start training for the next big thing. That honestly for everybody is going to be the best time for you to do that. Finish your last A event of the year, recover a little bit, donate some blood, and then you've got 4 weeks potentially of riding around and then before you start training. Again, it's really hard for me to give a precise amount there, considering it's I can't plan everybody's A events, right? Some people have them in June or July and some people have them in October. If you have them late in the year, then you're probably taking very little time off and getting straight into stuck into the training for the next year, which is unfortunate. Obviously it goes without saying you should avoid donating blood anywhere near your races or events. That would be the worst thing ever. It's almost like giving yourself sickness right before the event. I'm unfortunately had a couple, 2 or 3 clients this year, including obviously the great team of John and Mark from GCN, and John getting COVID the night before starting Race Across America. And it's horrible. And obviously not much we could do to control that. But there's obviously a lot we can do to control the fact that you don't give blood in the 4 weeks before your event. But of course, the issue there is that unfortunately, sometimes timing doesn't work and blood is needed year round. So if you do want to do your part, actually, there is, plasma, become a plasma donor. You can Google a bit more information on that. It doesn't affect your hemoglobin levels, obviously, and there is an increased need for blood plasma worldwide. That will limit some of the damage you do, but again, it's still going to affect your intense training, so you might want to avoid that. But I like my next section. I feel like I'm giving some actionable feedback here, because you've probably listened to this, and if you're listening or watching or reading or whatever it is, my stuff, you're probably thinking that you're not going to donate blood now. Here's what we can do to rectify that. First off, give more later. So once you've stopped or you'll take a year off from doing anything major on the bike or whatever, give more blood. That's a great way of doing it. But you could do a buddy system, right? Find someone and do a trade with them that is going to be able to give away more blood, and then, you know, promise that you'll donate more later. You could do a lot more in terms of, you know, chivying people up to donate blood and stuff like that. So you can be actively involved in donating blood, even if you don't donate blood yourself. So I feel like this, for me, is probably the best way of balancing compassion with passion. You know, compassion for others versus passion for your, you know, cycling performance. But also, I understand that it's not easy to ask people to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. So barter, trade, you know, would you donate some blood for me if I came round and did all your gardening? I don't know, would you? Leave me a comment. In fact, I'm not training. How many of you would like me to donate blood, and you can do something for me? But I think that that's also a good example. So I'm just going to finish this this content up with my top tips for donating blood and not losing your cycling performance. So again, number one is obviously avoiding donating blood near your events or intense training. Donate blood during the off season or after your final main event of the season, and donate blood plasma instead of just blood. Donate more blood once you retire. And for those of you that aren't watching, air quotes around retire from serious training. And encourage others to donate blood too. And of course, the last one, barter with someone, probably me, about donating blood for you and in exchange. And, you know, that's it. So again, I want to end this with saying it's not about not donating blood. It's about getting it right. So thank you for tuning in. As ever, if you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast streaming platform, there is a lot of useful extra information in the description. Any extra blogs or anything like that, or science and links will be in there. And you know, check it out. Come to coachpav.com and have a little look around. Also, always appreciate it when people leave a comment, ask a question. You know, just a thumbs up or share with your friends. It's fantastic. And you know, reach out. Consultations are always free for 15 minutes. We can have a chat about how we can make this work for you, or join our forum. Our community, and there's a link on coachpav.com, or you can just put community.coachpav.com and come and join the chat about this blog on there, and we can talk about anybody that, you know, has made the mistake of donating blood, or, you know, even bartering. There's a lot of people on our forum, on our community now, and I'm sure you'll find someone that will do a trade with you. So thank you so much. My name is Coach Pav, and have an awesome day.